welcome to the Olive Tree. I'm Julia Fisher, and with me on the programme today is Ofer Amitai, joining us from Jerusalem. Listen in now as I ask Ofer to describe, as he understands it, what God is doing in Israel. People listening to this programme want to know and understand what God is doing in Israel, and you have lived in the land now for many years. You spent some time in America as well, but by and large, your life has been in Israel. Can you look back over the years and just describe the developments that you have seen, the spiritual developments in the country? The people have returned. The population now is over 9 million. The congregations have grown up. There are now several congregations in the land, far more than there were even 30, 40 years ago. So let's hear the story of what God has been doing in Israel over the past 40 and 50 years.
My view of it personally, and this is how I personally want to walk with the Lord and teach people, is something that's, I think, very utterly simple. And that is, we as a nation and a people, from the time of when we rejected Messiah, and even from before that, we have lost our treasures, not gold and silver, but of the knowledge of God. All that God had invested in our forefathers, how he taught them, how he walked with them, how he revealed himself through the prophets and to our forefathers. It's written, but our eyes are blinded and we have lost it. And it's been clear to me for many years since I came back that the restoration of Israel would mean not only the restoration of the land, which is happening and probably will continue to happen or will be challenged, but in the end, God will restore the land to us and us to the land. And I'm not referring now to all of the problems of the Palestinians and the Bedouins. I'll leave that alone for now. But he will restore it in his own good time in the way that he wants to. But there's something much deeper here, and that is the restoration of the knowledge of God to our nation and people, to know him as a people. And I have been praying for many years and have believed that God has been working, at least as I see it in my own life, to bring me into the knowledge of God as my forefathers. So Abraham had to learn to walk by faith. I will have to learn to walk by faith. Jacob had to learn to get a hold of God and be conquered by him. This is, of course, at the cross now with Yeshua. I have to get a hold of God and let him conquer me this way. Prayer life, faith life, integrity, walking in sanctification, allowing him to work everything now, of course, through Messiah. And this is, I think, the meaning of what the body should be, is that is where God is working this out. But we are just a first fruits type body where God is meant for our people to be swept back into the knowledge of God. So if you look at politics, you think that's not happening. It's interesting, too, that Zionism, again, it's under this title of whose vision? So Israel wants to be a nation like other nations. Israel wants to be a modern state, a democratic state, a high-tech state, and it's achieved many of those things, not perfectly in any way. It is a leader in the nations in some things, like in agriculture and type of water conservation, everything. We so want to be like the other nations, and we are in some ways working out our own destiny, we think, by our own means and strength. That's why there is such a pull, because Zionism at the core, even though there was a religious Zionist faction, was by and large secular. So in some ways, that is developing and unfolding until, I believe, somewhere God will intervene in some way, in a very strong way. He will reveal himself to the nation. Zechariah speaks of a terrible time that Israel will go through. We don't know. But I know one thing, that the direction in the end is that we will be a nation after God's own vision. We will be his people. He will be among us. We will know him. And of course, this is where the Lord wants the church as well. But Israel is a nation. So even there, can I say that there is a wrestling between God's will and ultimate vision for the land and Israel's secular vision for itself and the religious vision for itself, which is different than God's, believe it or not.
You're describing a very tense situation, a lot of vested interest in different parties, the religious, the secular, and then this tiny group of believers who are slowly growing. So I come back to my earlier question. What have you seen changing the most in the years that you have lived in Israel, living in this tension with all these different opinions? Are people becoming more polarized in their thinking?
I think so. I think at this point, at this moment, the same kind of processes that are going on in the US, for instance, are going on here as well. We actually, I was thinking about it on the way driving home. I may sound like I'm full of bad news, but I'm very optimistic. But my optimism doesn't rest on man at all. It rests on what God has promised to do and will do. We are in a process. We are, again, vying for things. As far as the body is concerned, I think there is more, I don't know if more acceptance, but at least our voices are heard more, I think, and that's good. But remember that with some of the religious party, they have become more extreme. Listen, they just broke up a bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah in the Western Wall in the egalitarian part where it's meant for Reformed and others to have. And the Orthodox came, ripped up their books and cursed them. And in fact, somebody read that they were saying in order to show how they disdained the Reformed, they said, "Where's the cross? Where's the cross? Did you bring a cross?" In other words, that's how, I mean, it's an insult. They blame them for being Messianic Jews. So, but with all of that, again, I think that our voices are being heard. I don't think that our strength will be politically or ideologically, but I think we need to be a house of God from where God can shine the gospel in a very clear light to the people, because that's what they need. That's what they need.
Ofer, you're a pastor. Every week you're teaching your people. Every week you're having a prayer meeting. You're sending out these prayer notes, encouraging people to join with you. Can you just give us a little taste of what you're sharing with your own people at this time, how you're encouraging them in these days?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's amazing because this, if you preach in good times, challenging things, people can take it and leave it. But when you preach those same things in hard times, I think people will listen a little more. And so we are preaching the full counsel of God. I spoke to you about Daniel. I just a while ago preached about him and how he could withstand the pressure of Babylon. It's interesting that there were a lot of young people there and they kind of disappear into the palace. In other words, they partake of the Babylonish type life. And his book is so central to even the coming of the Lord and explaining it. So I'm encouraging my people, first of all, that God is real, God is sovereign, God is providential, God is good, God is powerful. We can walk with him. We can walk in victory in the midst of anything. My prayers are not desperate. My prayers are biblical. I'm not saying, "Oh, Lord, help." I'm saying, "Lord, get your will done." And the Bible is so powerful. In God, I've never met any one verse that reflects a doubt in God himself. And so why should I doubt? And it's a time for growth, a time for victory, I think, in people to walk with him, just like Daniel and others. Elijah was complaining to God, "I'm alone." God said, "No, I have 7,000 of these people who've never In times of difficulty, God has his people. He's not pulling his hair. So for me to paint a dark background, I can do that because in the middle of it, I see light. I see God working out his process. He brought us into the land that we might know him, that we will meet him. And maybe he has to, for Israel in general, he may have to cause us to despair and not trust in our high tech and our abilities and stuff. I don't know. But for the believers, this is our time. We can shine, we can preach, we can share, and we can live in victory. Listen, it's not. I've said to people many times because I'm a pastor, and so it's my work. And when people find out, in secular people, they're kind of like they have a big question mark, like, can you even make a living this way? I mean, they're like, what? And when I think about it in the congregation or to other believers, I say, I'm very grateful, extremely grateful that God has chosen for me personally and for anyone that is a believer now to love him, worship him, and serve him in a time when Yeshua is not yet popular. When he is, it's not going to be a big deal. But now to walk with him, that's the thing. And I will be forever grateful to God for giving me an opportunity to serve him, even if he doesn't come in my lifetime. I don't know, but I have the privilege of walking with him and bearing his name in his shame, in all of it, and just declaring that he is the Messiah of Israel. That is a big, big privilege.
You've been listening to Ofer Amitai, a Messianic pastor in Jerusalem, and we'll hear more from Ofer on next week's programme. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please visit our website, olivetreefund.org. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.